What is up, everybody, and welcome back to now episode 10. That is right, we have hit double digits already. Numero diez, but episode 10 of the Tight Lines podcast, hosted by yours truly, Tyler Plackey. This week, as I'm sure you guys have seen by the title of the episode, we are going to discuss my top four, that is right, four baits for the months of August and September. So we're going to talk about both, kind of this fall, this late summer, early fall transition period. We will talk about brands, colors, rigging, setups, and so much more with each of these baits. I also have an amazing story from a wild fish catch this past week that may or may not have broke my PB for the second time this year. And also, hint, hint, wink, wink, might have to do with one of these lures. I have a cool Facebook Marketplace story from a fishing sale that I made this past week that I thought you guys would enjoy. So stick around to find out and enjoy this week's episode of the Tight Lines podcast. Alrighty, so we're going to start off with my top four baits for the months of August and September. Like I said, this kind of like late summer into early fall transition period where we're really getting, really hot water, high water temperatures, hot days. And so that's what we're going for. So my first of the four, we're going to look at, I call it either the jerk shad or the fluke. This is a soft plastic 5-inch sized bait. So how do I rig it? It is going to be rigged for me on a 3/0 EWG hook. Now, this can either be a weighted or weightless setup, depending on how you want to, the kind of action you want. I like a weighted setup, and when I say weighted, I mean a weighted EWG hook, almost like a swim bait hook. I'm not talking about a Texas, like a bullet weight at the front. I'm talking get a weighted EWG. I go about a 1/8 ounce. And I get a Gamakatsu hook. I like them. They come in a 1/8 3/0 sized, and I will tell you guys all about how to rig that in 1 second. So the reason why you weighted or weightless if you want to kind of pop up more and flutter down, weighted if you want to kind of dart a lot harder underneath and then sink. This kind of depends where your fish are in the water column. I fish it on a spinning setup. I have a 7-foot medium light fast setup. I throw it on 10-pound braid. It's actually a brand new setup we'll talk about in a later episode. But on a 2500 size reel, just a pretty simple spinning setup. So the way you fish, you kind of twitch it along underneath, almost like you're walking a spook. And then give it some pauses for it to, kind of settle and sink a little bit. And that's typically when you're going to get those hits right as it settles. That's when I notice a lot of my fish hitting at that point. Like I said, a weighted setup here will keep it below the water surface. I've noticed that sometimes with the weightless setup, it has issues with surfacing and breaching, and that does get kind of annoying. So a couple brands that I like to throw. I've got two for you here. Obviously, number one is going to be the Zoom Super Fluke. It's a 10-pack for like $4.99 or $5.99. They have a bajillion colors, and they do great. Or you can get the Creme brand at Walmart. It's a 5-pack for $1.25. They're a little bit different, a little bit like denser plastic, but they're also a pretty good option. I think they also come in like a 5 or 5.25 inch sized. I like Zoom a little better between the two just because of the quantity of colors. There's a lot more colors. Like if you want to go in the spring, you can throw like the bright pink, the bone color. They have all sorts of colors. So we're going to talk about that in a second. So the big colors I like are going to be like a green pumpkin, a black. They have like some like Zoom's got like the baby bass color. They have like a ghost shad color. I want stuff that's going to imitate bait fish extremely, extremely well. In the fall, you've got a lot of, shad spawns and bluegill spawns. A lot of your bait fish have spawned at that point. And so what you're imitating is these small bait fish that have just spawned and are an easy meal for these bass. Like I said, I'm not looking for pinks. I'm not looking for like super out there, chartreuses. I want very natural colors at this point in time. Just because I think I've personally found it works better. Where I throw it, you can kind of throw it anywhere. The only place I don't really throw this in like super wide open water. When I say that, I'm talking like nothing around you, right? Because obviously, it's going to stand out there, but it's almost going to look a little suspicious, right? I like to throw it around grass, some laydowns, rocks. If you can find, some, it's sad to say, but like, a couch sitting in the bottom of the lake, or you know what I mean? Just find stuff that's at the bottom where fish are going to, relate. That's where I like to throw these at. Just kind of dart it around. It's going to be weedless. Because you're going to Texas rig it, and let's talk about that real quick. So the way you rig is you Texas rig it through the front, obviously. If you have a weightless EWG, if you have a weighted EWG, so here's how you're going to do it. So you're going to start the Texas rig. So put the point of the hook through the nose and push it down like you're going to rig it. Then back it out. Okay, you don't want to try and shove the weight through that nose, because all you're gonna do is just tear your nose open, tear that plastic. So you're gonna back it out. Then you're going to flip it, take the eyelet, and now here's the issue: is you have to have this untied. So I like to use a this is where I like to use like a, what are they called? Like a, not a barrel swivel, a snap. I couldn't think of a snap. This is one of the situations I like to use snaps, because you can pop the hook on and off, because it has to be, you can't have your hook tied on, because then you have to run, you're going to go to the underside where that hook just came out of, you're going to take your eyelet and run it backwards up through, so then it looks like you've started your rigging, right? But that keeps it from having to run the weight through. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So again, you're going to push the tip through and down, okay, just like you would, pull it back out, and then reverse your eyelet up through there so that it's how it should look. And then you just rig it the rest of the way in, and that just keeps you from running that big hunk of lead that's sitting on your hook through it, because all it's going to do is tear it up, and you're never going to have it sitting on there. So that's how you have to do it. And then, like I said, you have to use a snap, unless you want to cut and retie every time, because those lures only last a couple fish before they tear anyways. So you kind of, so you want to be able to do this quickly. So that is going to be the first setup. That is going to be my first bait. It's a fluke or a jerk shad, either weighted or unweighted. The next one is going to be a Rage Craw. So I throw this maybe different than you guys do. Maybe you guys are onto this juice like I am. I was listening to a podcast, and I'll shout them out. It's the Tackle Talk podcast by Andrew Hayes. Love listening to that show. That show inspired me to do this show. So hopefully you guys, go check him out too. He does a great job. But he had an interview. He did a series called Breaking the Mold. And he talked to a gentleman named Steve Parks, whose nickname is Big O, and he is the inventor and the patent holder for Rage Craw, or for the Rage Tail series. He came up with like the flanges, and he designed all the Rage Tail, and obviously he's selling them exclusively through Strike King. But he talked about how he fishes the Rage Craw, and ever since he talked about it, it makes so much sense. And I've tried it, and it has made a huge difference for me. So, what I don't like throwing the bullet weights on the front of any sort of worm or craw in a Texas rig. I feel like it just looks odd. I don't like the way it feels when I try and, when I work it. It just doesn't feel right. But I don't like weightless all the time. So we're going to go back to that weighted EWG. We're going to go either a 2-aught or a 3-aught hook here. And we're going to rig it just the exact same way we did on that fluke we just talked about. And the reason we're doing this is you still get that weighted action, which it's going to sink, but it looks so much more natural without that humongous bullet weight right on the front. And that's why I love this. So I'm going to throw this on light gear again. I'm going to throw on the exact same gear we just talked about for the jerk, for that jerk shadow, for that fluke. It's gonna do great. So colors, I like green pumpkins, I like watermelon red flake, I like black and blue, I like fire craw. Kind of any, look and see what color the craws are around you. If they're blue, if you got like almost like a blue color craw, go with a bluer color. If you got orange and red, go with those. But try and just match the hatch, obviously. Again, I like braid line. You can tie a floor leader if you want, but I've never had an issue with any sort of line shyness, especially with 10-pound braid. It's so thin anyways, it doesn't really make a difference. The way you're going to fish it, you can obviously cast out, let it sink, let it sit for a couple seconds, and just kind of give it those twitches. Don't give it don't give it 2 twitches every time. Sometimes do 1, sometimes do 3, sometimes do 2, maybe drag it, maybe swim it. Try and change it up to give it a couple different looks. Keep that rod tip up and that line tight, especially when it's real hot like it is right now. These bass are super, super picky with how they eat. And so they're not just mashing these. They're going to be very, very gentle. I mean, I was throwing, this is a little different. I was throwing the fluke last night, and caught a 4-pound, 4-ounce bass on a fluke, and you couldn't even feel him bite it. And I have a nice Dobbins rod. I have a pretty good Dobbins rod, a nice reel. You should be feeling it if they're really hitting. So they're hitting it really, really soft right now. So going back to how we're rigging it again, we're going to rig it just this exact same way we talked about with the fluke. So you're going to put it through if you're going with the weighted EWG, and you're going to back it out and run it backwards up and through. I like again, a 1/8 ounce is good, up to a 1/4 ounce. I think 1/4 ounce might almost be a little too heavy, so anywhere like a 1/8 to a 3/16 ounce. If you need to go deeper and you want to really get to the bottom, you can go to a 1/4 ounce. But again, a 2/0 or a 3/0 hook. And I'll literally throw this anywhere, anytime, anywhere. You can drag it along the bottom. You can swim it. You can hop it around structure and rocks. You can throw it through grass. It works anywhere and everywhere. So literally throw this whenever and wherever you want to. I love this. Craws never really got bit much around here on me. And I was throwing the Yums. I was throwing the net bait packet of chunks. I was throwing rage tails. I was throwing literally I was throwing the Christie Craws. I was throwing everything I could think of, and I couldn't really get bit on it until I tried this method. And it truly does make a difference. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the way it adds a little bit of weight to it, and it gets that, the nice flap in the arms and all that stuff. But without looking too bulky and unnatural. So the second bait here is going to be a weighted EWG Rage Craw, just like Big O intended. Moving on to our third of the 4 baits, and this is going to be a plopper bait. So a plopper style bait is an excellent summer topwater bait. And so we've talked about obviously 2 down low, and now we're going to talk about 2 up top. So this third one is going to be a plopper. So whether it's a Chopo, or it's a River to Sea Whopper plopper, or Mock Patroller, or whatever, an off-brand something, whatever it is, a plopping style bait. The reason I like it, so one, it's warm this year. So in early mornings and late evenings, bass are looking upwards and feeding upwards. They're super high energy and they're ready to hit hard. And a plopping bait checks 3 boxes for me. The first box for me is topwater, because obviously who doesn't love topwater? I mean, topwater is so fun. The huge explosion, the hard strikes, the aggressive fish. I mean, it's so much fun to fight these fish. Box 2 is it's a reaction bait. The plopping action, obviously, if you guys have ever been underwater and popped your ears where you can kind of hear everything, you can hear everything in water, the way that sound travels. So this plopping that you're getting on the top is heard and probably seen, and especially felt with their lateral lines, everywhere in that water system. So every bass is on alert looking for this, and it's just whichever one's hungry enough will go after it. So it's, everything knows, every creature in that water knows that plopping bait is there. Box 3 for me is the ability to let it sit. So unlike a buzzbait for me, and I like buzzbaits at certain times of the year, I'm not a huge buzzbait guy, because I like to work a bait and then kill it. And the reason I like to kill it is because I have found that if I'm working, a plopper along, and I give it a couple little chugs real hard, just with my rod tip, and then kill it and let it sit there, I have had fish just obliterated on that kill. Just absolutely come flying out of the water, look like they're about to go into the freaking sky. I mean, it's insane. So I like being able to kill it and let it float without sinking to the bottom. So a couple brands, as we talked about: River to Sea Whopper plopper, the Mock Baits Patroller, and then the Berkley Chopo are great. Colors, there's only 3 colors I really go with. I go with a black, I go with a bone, and then I go with a shad color, like a translucent shad color. And the reason for that is I don't really think you need all these super flashy colors, because these fish are not looking hard enough at the color of this bait. They are hearing and seeing the action and just going on instinct. All they're going to see is the underside. You get black, especially funny enough for night, black at night, and during a really, really cloud, if you get a really cloudy day, if you're trying to get some sort of they're not going to see the bait, they're going to see the shadow of it. That's what you want. You get bone to look more natural, and same with the shad, so it works. Sizes, I actually don't like the humongous ones. I like the stubby, fat ones, honestly, like the 75 size River to Sea. I've noticed that long and skinnier ones have a bad tendency to roll compared to the short and fat ones. Not sure. I'm guessing obviously something with the design of it and hydrodynamics, but I'm not a hydrodynamic engineer. I don't understand that stuff. It's just my thoughts and what I think it is. So I like I said, a 75 to maybe a 90 size. Obviously, if you guys are down south fishing, these humongous lakes in Texas going for teeners, obviously, then yeah, you're going to throw a 135 size. But for me around here, a 75 size, I've caught 3-pound fish on and had no problem. Gear, again, I'm going back to that same spinning combo, maybe a little bit heavier, maybe going to go to a 7-foot medium fast, just to get a little extra oomph. But because there's huge treble hooks on the bottom of this, you don't really need to hook set the crap out of this fish. You don't want to rip the hooks out of its mouth. You're going to be throwing it through open water, so you're not going to have, issues with snags where you need to have heavy gear to hoist it out of snags. You're not throwing it around pads or anything. You're throwing in open water, obviously, because you got these, two huge dangly treble hooks. So you don't need the ability to just absolutely horse a fish. You can kind of work the fish after it hits. You just want to be able to keep tension on it. Again, 10-pound braid. You can throw it on the same setup we've been talking about for the last two baits, which is really nice. A couple ways to fish the bait. You can do a straight retrieve where you just chuck and wind. You can give it some little pops while you're in there, so you can be kind of winding. Let's go pop, pop. You know what I mean? Get it a little extra, kind of like you're firing up a propeller. And also give it those pauses. Those pauses do great. Another fun thing about this bait is it is fantastic for night fishing. If you guys have ever gone topwater night fishing, you chuck in. For me, that's when I chuck and wind the most. I'm chucking it. I'm listening to it come in. And when I hear that explosion, I just wait to feel that tension on my line. And that's why I just pull up and apply pressure, and I've got a fish. And then you just hear the crazy splashing. It's just so much fun to try and catch fish. So that is our third bait of my top 4, and that is going to be the plopper style bait. All right, you guys. So the last one we're going to talk about today, number 4, is going to be the top water spook. I love the spook. We're going to end up doing a whole episode on the spook at some point. We're going to talk, we're going to go really in depth in it. But today we're just going to hit you with the basics like we have been. So the spook, similar to a whopper plopper, is a super fun, high adrenaline topwater bait. So you are working this thing, you're walking it like a dog, and they attract humongous blowups. That's just a ton of fun. I mean, who doesn't love topwater blowups? They're so much fun, and it's a great topwater bait for me. Due to its buoyancy, obviously, it can be worked at a variety of speeds. You can dead stick it, which I have found, again, similar to the plopper, working it for a bit and then killing it. That's when they explode on it, especially on those iffy fish. I love spooks with 3 treble hooks. I don't like the 2 treble hooks on it. I like 3. I like a front, middle, and back. Color-wise, we're going to go with a translucent, a bone, and a black color again. If you have a translucent one, maybe some sort of a green stripe or a blue stripe on top. You don't need to go wild with the colors again. It's very similar to talking about the whopper plopper. Again, it's a reaction bait. They're going to see and hear the from you working it, from you walking it like a dog. And that's when they're going to explode. They're not going to go up and look at it and be, it's not this color. They're going after it. If they want it, they're going to get it. Also, I like a one knocker. So if you guys don't know what that is, so inside of these, there's usually some sort of a weight that makes noise. Sometimes there's, 20 little BBs in it. Sometimes there's one big one. I like one big one. I think it has a better sound than the multiple little ones. Couple brands you can get. You can get obviously the traditional head and spook. You can get a Yo-Zuri 3DB, which I love. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And then also Mock Baits has what's called the Dead Man Walking that comes with some BKK hooks. I like this one, but I don't like the hooks that came on it. I had an issue. I've caught 3 fish on that one in about a couple week period. And I've already completely destroyed one hook just from 3 fish. And none of them have been humongous. It's completely destroyed a very nice BKK treble hook, which I kind of have issues with. Sizes, we're going to go with like a normal probably 5-inch or 6-inch size as I think about what those are. Bigger the better, honestly, on these because you're just getting humongous explosions. Gear-wise, I'm throwing on heavy gear. A lot of people talk about medium gear, a medium fast casting rod. We're throwing on casting gear. We'll start that. We're starting on casting gear. But for me, I like heavy gear. That I throw this on my frog setup, honestly, which is I have a Dobyns Maverick 735C. Then I have a Shimano SLX XT. I have 65-pound braid and 8.2 to 1 gear ratio. I'm throwing it on heavy gear. And I am just walking that thing at a good, I think of a song, find a beat, and or you can, it depends on how you're working, right? You can work it fast, you can work it slow. Then you can also dead stick it if you need to. I'm throwing it around. Typically for me, I'm finding lines. So I'm looking for like where a grass line might be underwater, some sort of like a rock line. I'm looking where fish might be hiding to ambush out, and I'm throwing it on top of that line. So I'm kind of covering them more on like obviously the open side because I want a fish to sit there and I want them to watch it. And I want them to see it and I want them to say, okay, that looks good. And I want them to just come flying out at mock speed and just smoke it, right? Again, another great night fishing bait too, very similar to a whopper plopper. You don't really have to see it to know what's going on with it. You just have to trust of what it's doing. So my fourth and final bait is going to be the Topwater Spook. So we're going to go back over them real quick. The 4 baits. The first one for this August and September like transition period is a fluke or a jerk shad, soft plastic. The second one is a rage craw thrown on a weighted EWG. Third one is a plopper style bait, and then the last one is a spook. So those are going to be my my top 4 baits for this specific, August and September type, time of year. So as we were talking about that spook, I have an excellent fishing story from this past week. So this past Wednesday, so I'm recording this on Monday the 11th. This past Wednesday, so whatever that might be, that was I think the 8th, like the 7th or the 6th, whatever it might be. I went out in the morning and was going out with that jerkbait we were talking about. I was going with the jerk shed, and then I also had a, what's the 6 Sense one, the Provoke. I had a 6 Sense Provoke with me as well. And I was up in this corner of this pond that's in my neighborhood, and I was just throwing it around, and I could see there was like 15 or 20 bass, or probably about, 11 or 12-inch bass, okay-sized bass, that were just following these. But nothing would take. I had one little take, and it was horrible. And I hadn't been fishing much topwater because the easiest pond for me to access is right behind my house, and it is just so loaded full of grass. Like even frogs get snagged. Like it's horrible. It's the worst pond I've ever fished. It's terrible, but it has some decent fish in there. It's fun in the winter. So I was up fishing that morning, and I'd seen all these bass, and it was starting to get hot. So I came home, and I went to work and came home and had dinner, and I was like, I want to go out and fish topwater. So I take my topwater rod, and I take my box with me, and I got my pliers, and I actually start off with a frog. I went up to there's a pond up front of my neighborhood that I started at, and I fished there and didn't have any luck. I had a couple fish jump out at it, but nothing take. I don't like frogs. I'm not a big frog fisherman. It seems like no matter how long, I've literally sat there and counted 6 Mississippis and set the hook, and I'm still pulling out of the fish's mouth. I don't get it. Whatever. So then I moved to a whopper plopper and didn't have much luck either. And then I decided to move ponds to the pond I was at that morning. And I was throwing a whopper plopper, and I wasn't having any luck on it. So I decided to pull out a spook. And I typically actually use a popping spook, but I decided to use just a walking bait this time, just for fun. And I was throwing the Yo-Zuri 3DB. It's just a normal, 3 treble hook spook. It was translucent with a green stripe on top, and it's like a 6-inch bait. And I throw it out, and I'm working it on the backside of this pond, and I get one right at the shore, pretty much jump out, and it just smokes it. And I'm like, oh, sweet, and I pull it in, and I realize that it's a fish that I've caught before. It's got these markings down the right side of its face, and if you guys actually go and watch my YouTube channel, this fish is in the intro. In a way, you can see me catching it, which is actually pretty fun. It's a former PB. It was actually smaller than when I caught it the first time, so I didn't break my PB for me. But I was like, man, I got big ones. So okay, so I kept fishing. I moved around a little bit, and at this point, I was just bomb casting spooks. You can chuck. I'm almost spooling my line on this. And I get one that I probably 50 yards out 40 yards out is where I got it at. And so, I got to work this fish. It wasn't a big one, but I got to work it all the way across. And I was having a ton of fun. And it's getting dark. And I'm like, man, I'm ready to go home. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give me 5 more minutes here. And so I move up to kind of where I was earlier with all those small fish. And the pond kind of angles a little bit, and I throw down this line, just like I was telling you about, along this grass line, right? Where I can see them, the grass is to my right, and then it's open water to the left. And I'm working it, and I work it once, and I bring it back, and I bomb cast it out. And I start working, like the 4th or 5th twitch, I have this fish just come out of the water. And when I got out of the water, literally full fish came out of the water at this bait. And it missed it. But as it missed it, I swear to you on my life, I wish I had it recorded, but I don't. This fish kick flipped it, and I watched it kick my lure into the air, and it comes back down and lands in the water, and then my lure follows it and plops right next to it. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, holy crap, this fish wants this. I give it 3 more twitches, and as I get ready to do my 4th twitch, it just I mean, it comes back out of the water. It was wild, guys. It came back out of the water, and it grabs it, and I set my hook, and I work this thing in. And I pull it up onto the story. Jeez, my God. Pull it up onto the bank, and I'm like, at this point, I'm like, holy crap, I got a nice one. Like, I've had a pretty good fish. I could tell in the water's a nice fish, but sometimes with these treble hooks, it gets hooked in the grass, and it feels heavier than it is. And I get it up, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a fat fish. And if you want to see it, it's going to be posted on my Instagram. Tyler Plackey Fishing. It's on there. There's also a video of it on my YouTube. Same thing, Tyler Plackey Fishing. Check it out there. But I'm like, oh my God, I need to get a weight on this fish. And all I had with me was and I'm a half mile from my house. I've got pliers, I've got my fishing rod, and I've got my box of baits. So I call my fiance. I'm like, Olivia, I need you. I need you to go out, get my backpack, get my fishing backpack. I need you to get my scale, and I need you to bring it up here now. And so she goes out and finds it and gets in her car and drives it up. And I'm trying, I can't do much with this fish. I've got it out of the water. I can't put it back in. I don't have a donkey rig. If I put it in, it's gone. I'm like, okay, I have to hold on to this fish. So she gets there, and I run over up the pond, up the bank, through the houses, out to the road, and meet her there and weigh it in at 4 pounds, 8 7/8 ounces. So it becomes my PB, beating my former one by about half a pound. My former PB was 4 pounds and a quarter ounce. So I was just over a half pound better than I had done before. And obviously I was pumped. I was like, holy crap. It's like I'm retiring this lure. Obviously, I actually built a cool board this week where I keep my retired lures for when I break PBs. So that's in my kitchen. It's really cool. But so I got to break my PB and put that fish back. It was out of water quite a bit. But funny enough, I actually caught it again last night. It was down about 4 ounces. It was at 4 pounds and 4 ounces. When I caught it, it looked like it just eaten because its belly was super fat. So I think it just eaten. So thank you. But I'm like 99% sure I caught it back last night by accident, throwing a craw, throwing that EWG weighted craw that we were just talking about. So it's fine. The fish is healthy. I was worried about it just because of how long it was out of water. So broke my PB, 4 pounds, 8 7/8 ounces. Super pumped. Like I say, go check that out if you want to see it on my Instagram and my YouTube, Tyler Plackey Fishing. My last story today, cool one from Marketplace. So I had this past winter I bought an Abu Garcia Max X combo. I was looking for more combos, and I just bought one to try it out, and I didn't end up liking it very much. And so I sold it on Facebook Marketplace. I bought it for $40 and sold it for $40. So I did fine. I put some line on it, so I lost a couple bucks in line. So be it. It's fishing. Caught some fish on it, so I'm happy. And sold it to a guy named Brad, who he came and picked it up on his lunch break. And I sold it to him literally on my way to work. We met on my way, and he gave me the cash and sold it. Drove to work, parked at my job. And as I'm getting out of my car, I look at my phone and I have a text from him. He goes, well, the fishing rod definitely works. And he literally took it home and caught a fish on it. And I was like super pumped. I'm like, bro, that's so sick. Congratulations, man. He was super excited because, he hadn't been fishing a while because his son broke his last fishing pole. And so he was super pumped. It was a super cool story. So I just want to share with you guys just a fun, cool, lighthearted fishing story from this week. So, all right, everyone, that is going to be this week's episode for you all. I talked a ton in this one. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. But, I had some cool stories I want to tell you, plus I want to talk about my top 4. So if you did enjoy this episode, please be sure to drop a positive review for us wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on YouTube, and we're on Amazon Podcasts right now. Not sure what else we can really get onto. We're going to try those, see what else we can find. Also, please be sure to drop a follow on whatever platform it is, and check out my Instagram and YouTube. Again, Tyler Plackey Fishing, all one word, TYLERPLACKEFISHING. You can see what I've been up to there. You can DM me suggestions for the show, ask questions for the tackle box, or just chat with me. I love to talk fishing, so I would love to talk to you on there. Just, let's talk fishing. So thank you guys so much for listening to me every week. Listen to me ramble on this fishing podcast. I love to talk about fishing, obviously. So thank you for dedicating your time to this show. I do appreciate all of your support. You guys obviously are the reason I do this show, because it's fun to put on a fishing show that you guys are enjoying. So thank you guys so much. And until next time, you guys, tight lines, y'all.